Welcome to a brand new season of GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS. Endurance Cup coming to you from a very sunny Paul Ricard. It is another monster grid. It's a very busy circuit as well. Fans have been flocking in all morning to partly soak up the weather, but also to soak up a real GT festival. Not only the opening round of GT World in Europe, but also the first ever races in the SRO GT3 Revival Series. Also, we have the opening rounds of GT4 European Series and Lamborghini Super Trofeo here this weekend. So for GT fans, it is an absolute feast. Down in the pit lane will be Bryn Lucas and Gemma Scott. In the booth, David Addison and Joe Osborne. Joe looking at what is quite a circuit.
Yeah, and with 59 cars attacking this Paul Ricard circuit, there's going to be so much action. And here is the circuit. 5.7 kilometres in length, 13 corners. Sector 1, you have the chicane of 1 and 2. The same at 3 and 4, then the tight section at 5. The long Mistral straight, 280 kilometres an hour with a flat-out scene. Then the hardest sector of the year, in my opinion, Sector 3, the Bousset, is very difficult. Double apex and then over the line. Lap time should be in the 1:53s in qualifying, dropping into the 1:54s in the race. They're the three sectors, and we get some seriously fast speeds at the end of that senior straight that we were talking about. Looks flat, but 30 metres of elevation, and that is all uphill into turn 10, where you get the long back straight into the headwind as well. So overtaking everywhere, and with 59 cars split across 4 classes, the action will be thick and fast.
And those 4 classes are Pro, Gold, Silver and Bronze, based on the categorisation of the drivers. And as Joe rightly says, some really fast speeds on that Mistral straight. For some of the support races, the chicane is used, but not for GT3 cars, not for current GT3 cars at least. The Revival Series does, but GT World uses the full flat-out Mistral straight. There are lots of Ferraris within the entry. There's Jeff Machiels, back for another season. Machiels Jr., his father Louis Machiels, has been a regular in this championship for decades in GT racing, and now concentrating on helping his son's career. So the Ferrari ranks as ever from AF Corsa, very strong indeed. WRT, well, the name Rossi is back, not just for this weekend, but for a full season. Valentino has decided that he rather prefers GT World Challenge and the nature of the racing. He shares with Dan Harper, former British GT champion aboard number 46, and also Max Hesse, like Dan, a former BMW junior, now turned full factory driver. Dan, a class winner in the Daytona 24 Hours. For many sports car drivers, it's been a busy start to the year. There was Asian Le Mans final couple of rounds, final couple of events, January, February. There's been Daytona, of course. There's been Creventic racing. Some World Challenge participation for some, whether it's been in America, Australia or Asia, that began a week ago. And there is a new recruit to the BMW ranks, Jordan Pepper, who's adapting to a very different sort of car.
Yeah, massively. Spoke with him this morning, actually. The main differences between the Lamborghini and the BMW, and they're vast. The engine is a completely different place, turbo versus naturally aspirated. But I feel with the start that Pepper and Van der Linde have had already at WRT, winning the Dubai 24, they're looking like firm favourites for the championship.
There is Gilles Stadsbader, who makes the switch from BMW to Ferrari for this year. Another of the young guns coming to GT racing, having been initially in one-make GT-style cars, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, a few seasons back. And qualifying, just to make the point, is split into the 3 sessions, 1 driver per part, but then each part, Joe, is split again.
Yeah, because of the amount of cars, we're a victim of our own success here. 59 cars trying to find space on that 5.7 kilometre track is always difficult. So to make it pure, we're going to split it down the middle. So we've got a Group A and a Group B within each session. So we're going to have roughly 30 cars in each to try and help the drivers find space, which is great, but you've only got 10 minutes. There's going to be an overlap, but the maximum you're going to get is 5 flying laps. So there isn't a huge amount of time to get that lap time on the board.
And it's a long lap as well. We're saying 5.7 kilometres. Lots of runoff. I mean, normally we don't have too many safety car periods here. Last year we had a few quick full course yellows, but they were largely for people with mechanical dramas. In the past we've had the odd puncture, inevitable perhaps in a 6-hour race, rather than lots of accidents. Now there, number 63, Lamborghini, Yeah, you're familiar with that, but not this car. This is the new Temporario, making its debut in Europe.
Yeah, beautiful car, and a big shift for Lamborghini as well, going from that naturally aspirated V10 now to a twin-turbo V8, which is really the most common engine now, isn't it, as we go through the sports cars that are produced by these manufacturers on the road, and then we take them into GT3. The V8 twin-turbo is the peak performance, but also fuel efficiency, which is an important factor in modern-day motorsport.
And a different noise it makes as well compared to that rather more symphonic sound that we've had from the Huracan or the Gallardo prior to that. It's going to be fascinating to see how that car gets on. Also in the entry, Porsche, Chevrolet, Aston Martin. Within the Aston Martin ranks, you will find Lance Stroll, Formula One driver here. And there's also Ford, the Mustangs, which are always ideally suited to Paul Ricard, especially that long, fast Mistral straight. Last year, the development from HRT, Haupt Racing Team, moved the cars on, and I think they've come back this year with higher confidence, haven't they?
Yeah, one of our 3 cars that has had an Evo kit. So over the winter, they've re-homologated parts, and the Ford's biggest one is the dive planes on the front bumper we just saw there, adding front downforce. So as the session goes on, we will allude to some of the changes on those Evo parts on our 3 manufacturers, Ford, Porsche and Ferrari.
Now there you can see on the left the pit straight, on the right the pit lane, and the pit lane here, a long pit lane, Joe, straddles the timing line. So sometimes it can sort of trick you into looking at cars losing a lap because they haven't triggered the beam. If you come to your garage on this side, the pit-in side of the timing line, of course you don't trigger the beam until you've done your pit stop when you're on your way out. Yeah,
essentially if you're in garages 1 to 10, you haven't done that lap. So in the race we need to keep an eye on that. Keeping an eye on Reece Barr here ahead of his qualifying session, GT World Challenge, the Irish driver of 2Cs. He's got that sort of anchor role in that 222 car of making sure the car's somewhere near the front to give Charles Dawson, especially against his bronze drivers that he's going to be competing against.
Yeah, British GT champion of last year, Charles Dawson, with Cian Jewis. That partnership remains. That's the car that Lance Stroll is going to drive, along with Murray Boyer and Roberto Mehi, with the Aston Martin in the background. This car for Oliver Söderström, he will be aboard shortly, and the Conti team benefiting. Lance Stroll, not entirely new to endurance racing. He's done the Daytona 24 Hours. He's had good results here in the past in Aston Martin in Formula 1, 2 10th places, and he will be aboard one of those Astons during the course of the session. There it is. There's the Stroll car, number 18, and 007 on the other side is that familiar combination of Marco Sorensen, Nicky Tim and Mattia Druni. Roberto Mehi is nominated to do the first part of qualifying, and it's going to be that average of the 3 drivers combined that gives you their grid position. So Lance Stroll benefiting really from the hiatus in the Formula 1 season, courtesy of World Events, and deciding that he'd quite like to go GT racing, of which there appears to be quite a lot of interest from the F1 paddock at the moment. We've again got that Verstappen name aboard an entry for a car. This year the Verstappen.com squad, or he's now Team Verstappen Racing, but Mercedes rather than a Ferrari.
Yeah, I think people are realising how competitive this championship is, and I have to say fair play to Stroll for coming here, because this is a very different domain to what he's used to. Yes, you're right, he's done Daytona 24 Hour twice, but in prototype cars. So to then jump into a heavy, slow GT car from his perspective, he's putting it all out there, and it's great to see.
And there is the Team Verstappen entry. Danny Juncadella along with Jules Gounon, who will do the first, well, he's got his name already emblazoned on the Lumi rank, Jules Gounon, and Chris Lullum, the third driver. It's going to be Danny Juncadella to do Q1. Chris Lullum, of course, staying with Team Verstappen, but when you bring people in like Jules Gounon and Danny Juncadella, it illustrates the intent, doesn't it, of the Verstappen Racing squad. On the road winner, Max Jules Gounon and Danny, of the first NLS race, but then they were excluded for using one more set of tyres than the regulations allowed. But this is the first time, of course, that the combination comes to GT World. Right, drivers now getting aboard cars because the GT3 revival session has just been concluded. Cars have made their way from the pit lane back to the paddock. That means that the circuit now can be turned over to the teams in GT World, and their number 52 Ferrari, which is ready to go. That's Matthias Zagazzetta, Jeff Machiel's, Gilles Stadsbader's car. It's going to be Matthias Zagazzetta, former single-seater racer in the UK, who will do the first driving duties. 98, the Rover Racing BMW, is going to be Augusto Farfus, along with Jake Dennis and Raffaele Marciello. Augusto's daughter, Vicky, racing in the UK this weekend in Ginetta Junior racing. So the dynasty continues. So Augusto concentrating on his own racing, but constantly diving to timing screens to look at what's going on at Donington.
Yeah, and then the team that's running it is Paradigm. So
that's right, which is also here. Yeah, quite.
So there's a world of inception going on there.
We need an Inception McLaren, don't we, to finish all that. So there are more Ferraris down in the pit lane, including the cars from Selected Car Racing, along with AF Corsa. You'll see all the cars on the stilts at the moment. Tyres will go on at the last moment, nice and warm, and then the first part of Q1 will get underway. The split is Pro and Gold, and then the other half will be silver and bronze. So effectively, you are against comparable drivers. The Bronze Cup, you have to have one bronze graded driver in the entry. That's always fascinating, and actually one of the most competitive classes, isn't it? And good overall results, not out of the question.
No, and we've seen that before, haven't we? Especially if you get lucky with a full course yellow safety car around the pit stop, suddenly you can get quite a cheap pit stop timing-wise, and we saw that a little bit last year. But like you said, David, not to have a single safety car last year was phenomenal. There's the RJN car. You can see on the nose there for Jules, that was the pit lane manager for British GT, who sadly passed away last week. So great to see RJN honouring Jules' legacy there.
Jules Battendale, yes, who was a mainstay of the pit lane, not only in fact for British GT, but also for GT World Challenge Europe events on occasion. The British GT, indeed the GT World community, sent its thoughts to his widow Rachel. So a look there at more of the cars getting set. 177, you can see, is the Gruppo Prom Racing Team's Mercedes AMG. Gruppo Prom, regularly to be found in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, but now switching brands and switching championships as well. And once again, as we've been saying, 59 cars in the entry, no shortage of interest in GT racing this season. Tyres on, wheels on, Pirelli rubber as ever, of course, in GT World. And the cars very shortly will be released on to the circuit. There's been a slight delay, just while a bit of recovery and clear-up has gone on after the GT3 revival session, which is also in its own right got a mega entry for its opening event. You can see Aston Martin's there on the right as we drone our way down the pit lane. Then you get to the AF Corsa Ferrari Emporium with lots of cars all queued up, ready to go, followed by Fords, BMWs, McLarens, which was another brand we've not really touched on particularly, but that was a brand that went really well last year, the Garage 59 cars, but very unlucky on reliability. Yeah, this was an awful start to the year, but they finished the year so strong, didn't they? Garage 59 especially. Optimum now with 2 cars and stronger lineups, arguably, than last year. CSA went very well here, and it was the first race for that team with the McLaren. So right. I think an RJN had been up there, so it's a real good plethora of McLaren options, and the only one I haven't mentioned is Greystone, and they've been up there in the timing on the prologue this week as well here. So yeah, it could be up there. I think in this first session I expect the Porsches to be strong. There's a lot of strong Porsche entries in this Group 1A. And the fast lane is open for that first batch. That means you can queue in the pit lane to try and get track position. That number 97 Porsche is the Antares Al, Ricky Perra and Luke Hartog entry. Ricky Perra, winner at Le Mans last year in his class. There is the very tall Luke Hartog, and he will be into the car for the third element of qualifying. Very, very rapid driver indeed, and specialises in Porsches. The Ford team at HRT, Haupt Racing Team, good to go. Did see former Le Mans winner Manuel Reuter in the garage yesterday, taking a keen interest, part of the team. And that car will be released in due course. So 1 or 2 trying to get themselves track position here by being out early. Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up. I'm a bit worried of that 222 car being past the white line. That is where pit exit is. It's a red line. So if you're on the road, you would get points for that at traffic lights, wouldn't you? I hope they're okay. The transponder hopefully is behind the line and they can plead their innocence on that one. More of the cars in the queue. Their number 45 Ferrari is from the Rinaldi Racing stable. Rafael Duran, Dylan Medler and David Perel. The drivers, David Perel, experienced Ferrari campaigner. Right, green lights go on at the end of the pit lane then, and the first part of qualifying is underway. Ahmed Al-Harfi drives 42 BMW, Mikey Porter's McLaren. Reece Barr was the driver, as we'd seen in the 2C's number 222 Mercedes AMG. And even though this is only notionally half the entry, it's still going to be quite busy out there.
Yeah, it's going to be 32 cars with the silver and bronze class combined. We expect the fast time to come from the second half of this session, though, don't we, when we get the pro cars and the gold cars out there. But there will still be some competitive times. And when we saw this format of qualifying in sprint last year, we did see a track evolution. So this time the favour is into the B group cars because they get all the rubber laid down by these 32 cars. So they have got the advantage, in my opinion, in the B part of qualifying.
Track has been fairly busy this morning and indeed all day yesterday, and there have been test sessions during the week, and there was the prologue. So there's been a lot of running, but this is the first time really that it's serious, if you like, as in we're now thinking about qualifying laps, we're thinking about a grid, we're thinking about where you start, because there, turn one, turn two, that first left-right sequence, if you're in the middle of the pack, that is a real pinch point. We know that on the opening lap of the race there can be damage. We know that you can get forced out wide and over a curb, and that might pick up some damage. You want to be free of all of that kerfuffle.
You make your own luck, and it starts now.
Yeah.
And 2Cs have done well to get this car at the front, so Respar's got the best possible chance of track space until he sees the pit exit where cars are still leaving there. So the jostling goes on. Yes, we have 18 minutes left on the clock, but this session, they have to be finished with 10 minutes to go. They finish that lap, and then they'll come into pit lane. So we've got a maximum of 5 time laps now for this group coming over.
There is Jules Gounod getting ready to take over in due course the Red Bull-backed Verstappen Racing Mercedes AMG, one of the stars out of the Mercedes AMG ranks. So they're going through is 222. That is Respar now onto his first flying lap, riding the curb a little bit, coming out of turn 2, speed building now, and then approaching the end of this section down towards turn 4. There's a slightly darker curb. Doesn't necessarily climb on that, but it is the braking point. You've got to straddle the curb there and not be on the rumble strip, otherwise you start to lose traction. And then a really tight corner down at the very bottom of the circuit at turn 5, first gear.
Yep, so Sector 1's purple because he's the first car. Last year, for reference, fastest Sector 1 was a 32.7, so he's a second off. That was set by a Mercedes as well. So at the moment, Respar looks like he's going to have to try and find some more time. At the moment, his delta time will be telling him he's probably on for a 1:55 roughly, and that's probably going to put him bang in the middle of this field. So this is where you need to knuckle down and hope that you can pull out the lap of your life. Tyres are only at their best at the start. They only start to fade, so you need to get the laps in early.
And also, don't forget, you can't refuel, so the cars get lighter as you go through Q2 into Q3. That Mistral straight takes you to this fast corner of Senior. 280 kilometres an hour on the straight to 220 for the right-hander, and then down to Le Beausset, where drivers try to V off the corner, as they say. Just explain what that means, Joe.
So you're trying to make straight lines out of something that's not straight. So you go in straight under braking, you come out straight under throttle, and that's the V shape you go. You try and rotate the car in the middle. It looked like it had a bit of understeer in the car. The camera's actually showing it looked like the front left tyre was really under low. The tyre was tucking under itself, so maybe the tyre pressure is still coming up slightly here on Respar. He comes into the last corner, slow speed, first gear, 55 kilometres an hour, and then full throttle to the line.
There are one or two parts of this circuit with high curbs. In fact, coming out of Le Beausset, that V corner is one. And I was being told yesterday that running wide in some cars, not a problem, but in the Mercedes AMG, that can just do a little bit of damage to the floor if it runs wide, just because of the nature of the car compared to the height of the curb. And also, certainly through free practice, I had one driver telling me yesterday that although, yes, you can on the Mistral get a tow, he said you might find occasionally drivers being told not to get a tow, because then their top speed doesn't look great and they could go and plead their case to the officials and try and get a tweak on the balance of performance. So there are games trying to be played from one or two teams all the way through to maximise their opportunities. But that tow does work. Another 10 kilometres an hour, for example, in a straight line along the Mistral. It's
huge. It's like there's a tow rope between the two cars. You suddenly feel this extra power. It feels like 50, 60 horsepower. It's a huge amount. As you see Johnny Adam purple in Sector 1 by 4/10, and it's a good Sector 2 as well. The Aston strong here in Sector 3. Like I said earlier in the show, my sector of the year is Sector 3 here at Paul Ricard. It's the hardest one. There's every sort of corner going.
Now, we know that Johnny Adam is a star. He's been a multiple British GT champion. He's jointly won the most races. He's, of course, been a Le Mans class winner. put your team manager's hat on, why would you put your gun driver like Johnny out in the first part rather than the third when the car is at its lightest? Or does it not matter these days? Now we're looking at the average.
I personally think you put your best driver in first because it's when the car handles its worst because of the extra fuel. So they don't get the glory time, but actually this is putting the foundations in for qualifying. And I think that's what Blackthorn, Akira Costa are doing. James Appleby, team manager there, has obviously got the strategy and decided this is what it's going to be. Is this going to be a low 54? Can he get into a 53 with a full fuel load of about 60 kilos extra than it will be at the end? 54.4 goes fastest in the session.
And the rest of that crew, Giacomo Petrobelli and Tom Wood, who we saw racing in British GT with Andrew Howard against Johnny and Giacomo. You're looking here at Gaspar Simon, who is the SRO GT Academy winner, stepping up to GT3, and SRO looking after the next wave of GT stars. It's amazing how many young drivers there are coming into this. If you go back a few decades, GT racing, sports car racing was occasionally seen as being where retired drivers went to, but now very much the domain of young guns. And there is another one going through, Gaspar Simon, and as I say, that SRO GT Academy winner last season.
Yeah, SRO creating a platform for so many drivers to become professional at it, and that's really the pyramid, and that's what we're seeing here with Simon. And he was quicker than Johnny Adam in Sector 1, both in Aston Martin, so it's showing you, although new to GT3, new to GT World Challenge, he's not going to be anywhere too far from the top.
Now, at the moment, Johnny Adam is the fastest, as Joe was saying, that 1:54.431, 73 thousandths up on the number 9, Alexei Nesov, Pure Racing Porsche. But let's see what Gaspar Simon can do, because although it was a good first sector, he lost a little bit of ground in the second. Heads up towards the timing line, which is there. Goes through, breaks the beam, and Gaspar Simon does go fastest, a 1:54.365. So two good sectors, a not brilliant middle. This is Alexei Nesov's Pure Racing Porsche. Absolute best in the first sector, but he's another one who's lost a little bit of time in the middle. What can he do in the last sector? We're about to find out as he comes up to break the beam, and he goes third fastest. It is Simon now ahead of Aurelien Panis, Mercedes, Alexei Nesov third, Johnny Adam fourth, and Dries Van Thor in the Paradigm BMW 991 is fifth.
We've got a real mix of cars, haven't we? That's the good thing for the balance performance as we go on board now. The 67 got a yellow flag into the sector coming in, so it wasn't interceding to that overtake by the Ferrari, who was fine. It looks like the yellow's cleared as well, so just a spin. That gives you an illustration of the slipstream. The Ferrari there would have been tucked up behind us, and it's just slipstream past this Mercedes. Now we run wide. That won't be a track limit, although it is technically, it's not one of our monitored spots, and it wasn't an advantage either. But you can see the front tyre is given up around that long Lebousse double apex veering off corner.
We'll worry about track limits more when we get to the race, but there has been a tweak to the regulations overnight to give drivers a bit more leeway. That's the reason we had that brief yellow flag, as number 45 of Rafael Duran got it wrong at Lebousse. So effectively for the race, the drivers are given just a little bit more leeway before penalties come. But the race direction team certainly don't want people abusing them. And when the penalties come, they're quite draconian.
Yeah, it's game over. Once you've done 6 track limits, you really are not going to be anywhere near the front of the field or your class. Shout out to Phil Riedlhaus there in third in the Ford. Didn't see that lap come up, but that's good to see the Ford well up there. There we see Dienst in the Winwood. Wow, Lebousse looks hard, doesn't it? We saw the spin from the Ferrari. We were on board when we ran wide. That's a real snap of oversteer right in the mid part of the corner, and rare for the Mercedes to handle like that. So I assume the rear tyre is gone. We're going to watch it turn in. All looks okay. Gets to the first apex, and then suddenly the rear left just gives up. Look at the amount of opposite lock. Does well not to do a full rotation there, but that is a great illustration of how difficult Lebousse is and why the drivers love and hate it in equal measures.
Yeah, as you said earlier on, you're veering off that corner. You're also going down from fourth to third as you go through, and Dienst then, having blotted his copybook on that lap, carries on, but he will have suffered as a consequence. And Marvin Dienst, don't forget, is another experienced quick driver, back with Renat Selikov and Gabriele Piano, getting very, very busy here. Look, as Baptiste Moulin's McLaren tries to get itself up through the traffic through Senior, and he does clear the traffic round the outside. Good going, that.
Yeah, and good going by Wiebelhaus, who's now gone fastest. So purple sector 2 there for the Ford, so the Ford's suddenly looking strong.
That's right, the Mustang is fastest by 0.2 of a second, and actually in this company that is a lot. You've got, for example, Nesov and Adams split by 1,000th further back. At the moment the leading 17 covered by a second, which is pretty impressive on a long lap like this. And don't forget, as we've made the point, this is only half the field.
Yeah, and we're at the crossover period now, so we are seeing some pro cars leave the pit lane along with the gold class as well. And unsurprisingly, Moulin pitting there, so much compromise with traffic, and that is the story of qualifying. Even with only half the cars out there, cars still struggling to find space.
This is Aurélien Panis making his way now up towards the conclusion of the lap. He, this year, is in the Get Speed team Bartoni Brothers car. Remember, he was a Brooks and VDS driver before. He's in a different team, but he knows the Mercedes AMG from last season, so that continuity continues. Up towards the timing line, Aurélien Panis will come. His father, a Formula 1 race winner, don't forget. And over the line, Panis is still to be found for fastest. Finn Wiebelhaus then by 0.2 of a second. Tops the times at the moment.
Yeah, and he'll be on his in-lap now. So you can see on the timing graphic on your left, if the name has got a red background, that means they're in pit lane. So suddenly everyone in the silver and bronze class is going to turn red, and we're going to get all our pro and gold class cars mixing it in the first 32 cars have already posted their time.
And that's the car that currently is the fastest. Finn Wiebelhaus's Ford Mustang from Hubert Haupt's stable. He shares with Maxime Osten, moving from BMW, and Eduardo Cosseteng, who was in ADAC GT for the last 2 or 3 years. So coming new to GT World Challenge Europe is Eduardo, whose father used to be a regular in the gear race at Macau going back a long, long time. There is the Verstappen Racing Mercedes AMG heading down the pit lane. So looks fantastic in the Red Bull livery, but this is going to be very serious indeed now, isn't it? It's going to be really interesting as well to see how these times compare to what we've just seen out of the Mustang of Wiebelhaus, and whether there's much of a difference. Yeah,
I think out of the 32 cars have already posted times, I think all of these that are heading out now are going to be in that top 32. I think the track evolution and just the nature of having pro and gold class cars is going to be a topsy-turvy order after this session.
What kind of margin do you think they will be quicker by? Are we talking hundreds? Are we talking full seconds? I mean, okay, there's going to be a disparity for some of those places, but Wiebelhaus at the moment, a 54.0. What would you anticipate the fastest pro time to be compared to that?
I think it's going to be a 53.5, 53.6 would be my guess. I think the track evolution is only going to be a tenth and a half potential, the rubber being laid down. Same fuel loads between the two, of course. But I just think that track evolution is going to be the deciding factor. And with the grid being so tight, of course, a tenth or two is a massive.
It is indeed. So it is at the moment Danny Joncadea at the wheel of the Verstappen Racing Mercedes. Number 17 Mercedes. Here is the Maxime Martin, Maxi Goetz, Fabian Schiller entry, and that has got Maxime Martin at the wheel. So the very experienced Belgian driver goes through. It's a really good lineup in that car. So that's another one that you rule out at your peril. Going into this, you've got to say it's absolutely wide open. There are so many competitive cars, competitive drivers, and good driver lineups across all the classes. You know, toss a coin in the air, really, to pick a winner. Maxime Martin, then, the first of the pro drivers going for a lap time, so we need to see how this squares up against a 54.0. That has been done by Finn Wiebelhaus, the winner going back 2 years of a gold medal in the FIA Motorsport Games. Finn, Maxime Martin, we know, has been a successful driver, whether it's been winning the Spa 24 Hours or in the very early days of what was then called the Blancpain Endurance Series. Maxime, former factory driver for BMW and for Aston Martin, got the McLaren behind him, still weaving around, getting warmth into the tyres, and a big flash of the lights there to say to the traffic up the road, I'm on a lap, so be careful, you're not on a flying lap. You can tell that by the weaving, and this, the fastest part of the circuit.
Yeah, and the Mercedes, good in the speed trap, but not the best, so probably 275k, 5 off the Ford, which has been the fastest so far in this speed trap. At the moment, this lap isn't going to be the one for Maxime Martin, and that's worrying because he is flashing his headlights, like you said, David, so he feels like this is a good lap for him, but lap time-wise at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be worrying the top few spots.
Indeed, so the car then doing green sectors because it is the first flying lap that Maxime has done, so inevitably it is quicker than it went on its out lap, and the session, looking at the clock, 5 minutes to go, as now Frederick Schandorf goes fastest only by 51 thousandths in the Ferrari. He was always very quick in McLarens and indeed in Lamborghini Super Trofeo prior to that. But Frederick Schandorf then does a 1:54.027 to be the fastest outright.
Yeah, and one of the very early gold drivers. Martin has backed out of this lap. Obviously didn't feel it was that good in the end and needed space to the BMW in front, who wasn't going to move out of his way. And that's what he's trying to do. He got past the WRT car, but he was worried about the Paradine car. So that wasn't a representative lap for Maxim Martin just yet.
Oliver Söderström, who has been at the wheel of 21 Aston Martin, his best sector time is under investigation for potentially having been set under a yellow flag. So the stewards will be looking at that, as here, number 50 Ferrari hurtles up towards the completion of the lap. This is the car of Arthur Leclerc, Sean Gillard and Lilou Wadou, who is at the wheel of it at the moment. So heading towards the timing line, number 50 Ferrari, Lilou Wadou, who's raced in LMP2 as well as in GT-style cars, goes over the line. Bastien Buss in the Porsche is now the fastest. Let's see what Danny Juncadella can do in the Mercedes. Breaks the beam and only 20 seconds. So should we call that a start-up lap rather than a full flying lap?
Yeah, the tyres are in a tyre oven. Big wiggle under braking there for Juncadella, but sometimes the teams prefer to not overheat them in the oven and let the driver bring it in naturally. So hopefully for him that was a prep lap, not a full push lap, as we go to the 98 Rover BMW. Car looking good, looking flat out of it, and 2 more corners to go. Shouldn't be affected by traffic.
Meanwhile, the Rover Racing BMW, you can see there, making its way up towards the timing line. This is the entry of Augusto Farfus, Jake Dennis, Raffaele Marciello, another very, very good lineup, and that's about to break the beam. So Buss ahead of Mattia Drudi, Dan Harper has gone third ahead of Schandorf, and then Wiebelhaus. Christopher Haase, welcome back to the championship, 6th in the Audi. Kelvin van der Linde's BMW is 7th, Oliver Söderström a provisional 8th, Gaspar Simon 9th, Lilou Wadou 10th, which is good going as well.
Yeah, and we are seeing some of the pro and gold cars starting to shuffle down the silver cars especially, aren't we? But so far we haven't quite got the pace what I expected. We're on a 53.8 for Buss, so let's see if anyone else has got a couple of tenths to get it into the mid-53s.
So this is Farfus in the now red and white colours of Rover, the motor oil company, and Bastien Buss I touched on being the fastest by 29 thousandths from Mattia Drudi. We are into the 53s now, 53.846. The best time of Buss. Joseph Loke goes quicker still on a 53.764, 82 thousandths ahead, and that at the moment means that we have the first 21 cars covered by just under a second. And Fleming pips his teammate, sorry, 53.5, so that's where I thought we would be. That was a good lap from Garage 59, first and second at the moment. Remember, this is only 1/3 of qualifying, so we still have 2 more sessions to go to combine them to get our final pole position. Drudi now splitting the McLarens. All this effort for a grid position that can all unravel at turn 1, and all that effort to nothing. But yeah, the pressure is on in qualifying, and in these short sessions like this, it's great, isn't it? Because with the driver having a very small number of laps in which to deliver, you really see how good they are. Yeah, the intensity is through the roof. I've said it before, but as a driver, qualifying is the crescendo of motorsport. There is no room for excuses. It's you, the car, and the track, and nothing else. And it's almost the purest form of motorsport racing is the qualifying session. I mentioned Christopher Haase coming back to the championship. The Audi that he drives has improved again, up to 4th. So it might be the old warhorse of GT3 racing in a sense, the Audi R8, but it's still a very competitive car. Tom Fleming, meanwhile, is the fastest. There he is, going now up through Signes. And Tom, who first came into GT racing in a Ferrari, had that rather large off in practice at Misano and hurt himself a little bit. Well, he's bounced back from that, switching brands this year, and very, very quick British driver, having been a star of Ferrari Challenge going back 2 or 3 seasons. So for Garage 59, a quick team, quick cars around here 12 months ago. Looks like that pace continues, because the McLarens are 1st and 3rd, make that 1st and 2nd as Loke goes back to the top of the times, a 53.450 now. Oh, and I feel for Fleming there, because he's boxed, because he can't improve. He would have been told you're P1, you're good, and then he gets done by his teammate. So very quick Fleming, like you said, managed by Matt Griffin, and he's got some quick teammates as well, Benji Gerfer and Louis Pret, who's a standout driver for me towards the end of the season. And Garage 59 now competing in the World Endurance Championship for McLaren, seem to have started the year as they finished last. Now this, the run past the pits. Let's just go on board here and have a look around the circuit with the Danny Juncadella driven Mercedes. Joe, into turn one.
So car looks more stable than we saw from the outside, didn't we, early on? No snap under braking, but we're not hustling on too hard. Have we given up already, or is Danny Juncadella just this smooth coming into turn 3, braking just after the 100-meter board, bringing it into the right? You suddenly need to get the car over this curb on the left to hook it up. And he is quite wide there, isn't he, over the white line, into the slow speed corner now, hard on the throttle. Sector 1 now finished. What does our sector time look like? Looks okay, but it's not rapid. This could be an in-lap. Now, last corner, onto the back straight. You have to be careful of the apex curve there. Can unsettle the car. And now the long, long straight. You can't even see the end of it. There is the elevation changes. We go into scene, 30 meters on the rise. It's a soft brake here because you're just looking to scrub the speed off. Some cars taking a downshift, some leaving it in top gear. Let's see what the Mercedes does as we come to the brake zone. Are we going to downshift, or are we going to just roll it through in 6th gear? One downshift there, but yeah, for me, it looks like we're probably going to be coming into the pit lane, and we're just looking after these tyres because the tyres are used in the race.
The checkered flag is out, so Danny Juncadella can't be improving in the sectors. It does give the feeling of an in-lap, doesn't it? Now there, number 63 is the new Temporario. That has already lost lap times for track limit offences. Franck Pereira, the transgressor.
Yeah, and when you get so few laps, when you do lose laps to track limits, it hurts even more, especially if it's your best lap. But unfortunately, there's no excuses as a driver. You're the one controlling the speed and the trajectory of the car. So if you run wide, there's no one else to blame.
So through scene comes Franck Pereira. He shares that car with Mirko Bortolotti and Maximilian Paul, who will do the next section of qualifying in that car. Again, Q2 will be split into the 2 groups and Q3 the same, so it does make for a longer session, but a really interesting one. And don't forget, although it's qualifying now, approaching lunchtime, it's 12:30 local time, the race is starting at 6 o'clock this evening. So have a problem in qualifying, you have not got much time to sort it out, never mind a bad grid position. You know, the pressure is on, and then those weary mechanics have got to run the car for 6 hours tonight.
Yeah, the mechanics are always praying it's not a long parc ferme after qualifying, and so parc ferme is where the cars are essentially quarantined, they can't be touched, just to make sure everything's legal and above board, and that can go on for well over an hour, so suddenly they've lost that prep time as well.
So flag out at the end of Q1, and Joseph Loke the fastest from his teammate Tom Fleming. The Garage 59 McLarens are split by just 86 thousandths of a second. Matthew Drudy's Aston Martin 3rd. Lucas Auer sneaked up to 4th ahead of Christopher Hauser's Audi and Bastien Bus in the Porsche to be 6th. Alessio Rovera 7th ahead of Dan Harper, that's Ferrari from BMW. Frederick Schandorf 9th, and Gilles Magnus 10th. Gilles Magnus also switching brands. He's at Porsche this year in one of those Boots and VDS cars. The Boots and VDS squad moving away from Mercedes AMG to Porsche. The cars look fabulous. We'll touch on those, no doubt, during the remainder of the session. So everybody back in. The cars that have just arrived can be prepped. Those that were in the first part of qualifying are getting ready to go out for Q2. Joseph Loke, though, is the fastest, and we can hear from Joseph, along with, welcome aboard, Bryn Lucas.
Well, Joseph, it was amazing to see what you did just there. You pipped your rival across the garage there at the last moment there, under a 10th. It's all you can do, really, at this stage of qualifying. Get your feet under the desk and see what you can do on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the car's, first of all, spot on. Like, it's feeling amazing at the moment this weekend. The lap I did, I was really happy with as well. Like, across the line, I was like, yeah, that's good. So, yeah, really happy with how it's gone so far. Obviously, we're nowhere near the end of the weekend yet. There's still a lot more to do. But at the moment, we're looking good.
Is there anything you've learned from practice yesterday, out on the track today, evolution of the track, or something you've passed on to your teammates for the next 2 sessions of qualifying? I
haven't had a chance yet because you collared me, but no, I think, to be honest, the track's improved a lot since yesterday anyway. So yeah, it's just made the car just come together nicely. We thought we were in a good place coming into quali anyway. But yeah, no, we're pretty confident, I think.
Long way to go, but it's a good start. Well done.
Thank you.
Macclesfield's finest, Joseph Loke, former winner of the BRDC Young Driver of the Year award. Joseph Loke then will hand the car to Dean McDonald. Tom Fleming 2nd will give way to Louis Pret, and Matthew Drudy 3rd hands next to Marco Sorensen. Lucas Auer 4th, as I mentioned, from Christopher Hauser and Bastien Bus. Alessio Rovera 7th, Dan Harper 8th, Frederick Schandorf 9th, and Gilles Magnus 10th. So Finn Wiebelhaus, who was fastest in Q1A, ends up 11th, which is still good going actually, ahead of Danny Junkidea, Hugo de Wilde, Kelvin van der Linde and then Dylan Pereira. So you've got some big names that Finn Wiebelhaus is ahead of. The best of the pro cars, Joseph Loeb, his McLaren, Tom Fleming topped gold, silver topped by Finn Wiebelhaus, and bronze was Johnny Adam. With Giacomo Petrobelli, the bronze graded driver. So it seems odd, doesn't it, to say Johnny Adam is the fastest of the bronzes when he's got the success he has. But the way the regulations are, if you want to be in the Bronze Cup, you must have a bronze graded driver, and Giacomo Petrobelli is that bronze, although he again is a very experienced, very competitive bronze driver.
Yeah, and he's been getting faster and faster, hasn't he? Now he's getting used to that Aston Martin. It seems like he's going to be well up there. He topped the bronze session, so where only bronze drivers are allowed out in practice, he was the fastest. So he's been the benchmark so far for that class. Yeah,
Giacomo Petrobelli many moons ago in Formula Parma Audi in the UK, but he was on the grid for the very first Blancpain Endurance Series race, and now as that has morphed into GT World Challenge, we have Q2A on track, including 97 Porsche, driven by the redoubtable Antares Au, who is still a Porsche driver in GT World, but then a McLaren driver in the World Endurance Championship once that begins. And Antares, the Hong Kong driver, has done a huge amount of miles in the last 18 months, driving in assorted championships, largely in Porsches hitherto, but if there's a weekend he can race a car, he's been there.
Yeah, and it's great to see, and he's been getting quicker and quicker, and had a strong year last year. It seemed like the partnership he built up with Hartog especially has been really good for both of them, and also through Retronic. Interestingly, Retronic running two separate cars in the Lamborghini now and the Porsche. Interesting to see how that will work as a dynamic for the team.
And on the subject of dynamic or dynamique, there is the Dynamique GT squad in the entry once more. Treble 2 handed over now to Charles Dawson, who was mighty impressive last year in British GT, so much so that the prize to try to slow him down somehow came after the first race win that he and Cian Jewis had at Donington. But he really, okay, he'd done a lot of testing last year, but he really did look impressive. Yeah, it was awesome Dawson, wasn't it?
Absolutely. A lot of the championship, and he's now taking the step up to GT World Challenge, which is great to see, staying in the same car, taking Jewis with him as well. So again, you're getting that pro-am relationship that's so important. It isn't just the job on track for the pro with the am. They have to coach them, they have to look after them during the weekend, make sure they haven't got lost out the airport, all the stuff these multimillionaires struggle with in day-to-day life, but they are the mainstay of GT racing, and they're looked after well, and that's actually running well. That'd be a track limits done for Dawson on the exit too. You see the purple flashing light in the rear, huge snap of oversteer as well. Drivers saying the track felt good, aren't they, Joseph Loeb? But it looks like there's a blustery wind out there because a lot of drivers getting caught out.
You will also find the cars have a light at the back where the bronze driver is in, so the traffic coming up behind knows whether that car, as there's a yellow in the first sector now, is being driven by a higher graded driver in the entry, or whether it is the bronze. And if it's the bronze, you might just give him a little bit more leeway, just hesitate slightly to see which way the car is going, and that's another good idea for safety reasons.
Yeah, massively. And there's the 87 stopped, and red flag straight away, so clock will stop. And why is that stopped? The front left looked relatively low. Is it a punch or is it a suspension problem? But they've decided that car's not moving, and race control have to act fast. In this short qualifying session, we need to make sure the clock does stop, but everyone on a lap loses the lap. But yeah, the splitter definitely looks low on its front left, and yeah, the curbs here so big you can get suspension failure from smashing it, but just looks like it's got not enough air in the front left, and strange not to drive that one back at that point. They're obviously worried about creating more damage.
I was about to suggest that maybe that's the reason, because it's a lot of laps still to go, isn't it? You still have the better part of 5 kilometres to go, because that's early in the lap on the run down towards turn 4. So Gabriele Piana at the wheel of the car has stopped, and perhaps it is to try to avoid damage, unless it's the suspension itself that has collapsed. It does look as though the splitter is on the ground, and the tyre looks all right to me. Just look, I concur it's low, but the car, we understand, just came to a gradual halt. It didn't suddenly stop, and it's not hit another car as far as we're aware. So the marshals open the door and say to GT4 champion of years past, Gabriele Piana, what's going on, or words to that effect, and they will, with the assistance of the recovery crew, get that car out of the way. So It's coming out of turn 3, Gabriele Piana. I just wonder whether, of course, there is an underlying problem, because we saw Marvin Deist in the first part of qualifying have his big moment at Le Beausset. Was that the start of a suspension problem? Question mark.
Yeah, potentially, because it went light on the rear, so if that front left under load is taking more the corner weight, then that is a good synopsis potentially there, and a good excuse you're given to a driver, David.
Here to serve. Yes. So the Mercedes being retrieved as soon as get that out of harm's way.
The Winwood mechanics look maybe slightly puzzled as well what the problem is, because of course they want to get that car fixed and get it back out for Q3 at the least.
Another thought, is the wheel loose potentially? So it's moved, it's not seated properly, it's close to the guard. Maybe that's why it stopped. But yeah, well, we'll send Bryn to the garage and we'll see whether Winwood will fess up as to what the dramas are.
Yeah, it doesn't normally make the car lower when it's loose, unless it's fully off, and then it would be quite low. But normally how the stub axle works is a linear shaft, so it shouldn't lose any of that. We did see Mercedes with a few wheel nut issues last year, didn't we, at Monza particularly?
Yes.
It was Get Speed had a bad time of it. And the Mercedes is quite quirky that the wheel nut is in the wheel itself, so it's always captive. It never comes out with the gun, and that is to help with the speed of the change, but it does come at a slight reliability problem because it's harder to service those wheel nuts.
It's taking a long time to have the car retrieved, isn't it? In as much as there was a quad bike to tow it, but the fact that that's now gone and we might need a recovery truck does suggest that there is problems. Piana now gets out to have a look at that front left corner.
So yeah, he's now got to plug his radio back in to tell the team. So it looks like he's seen what the problem is. So maybe the wheel being loose is one of them, or he's just spotted the puncture, but he's now communicating back to the team what the problem is. And it looks like the marshals are recovering, preparing for a full recovery. They're taking the bits of tape off the roof where it can then access into the roll cage. So the lifting procedure is much, much faster in recent years.
Gabriele knowing that a straight toe might do more damage, whether it's to the suspension or the wheel coming off or whatever it might be, whereas if it's lifted. So I just wonder, is that wheel slightly protruding outside the guard, or is it just my old eyes?
It's hard, isn't it? It's definitely not sat right. So, yeah, is that sat because of suspension or wheel nut? I now rule out the puncture theory. I think it was just the heat haze of the track making the bottom of the tyre look flatter. But it definitely looks like it's not got the right amount of camber. So the way the wheel is sat. So let's look at this front left. You can see the wheel nut on. The car controller is going to lift the lollipop. What can we see as he turns right? At the moment, the car's okay.
Looks okay, but you'd only probably find a problem as the speed built, wouldn't you? So he's gone out on track, and then he would discover whether there is a problem, but it is going to be a full lift.
We'll get a good insight when the car's lifted and we see where that front left ends up. If it's on the floor, then the wheel's not connected.
I think that's protruding. I think that is sticking.
You're right.
Yeah, so it looks like a loose wheel might be the answer.
And actually, the wheel nut is not in enough, so the wheel nut doesn't look tight. You can see those teeth on the end compared to the rear, where you can see the axle poking through.
Okay, now, you've been a team manager as well as a driver in GT racing. I'm just going to pause for effect there. If that car has gone out, and let's say it is a loose wheel, okay, the team's straight away hampered because there won't be qualifying time necessarily here, but also, is that an unsafe release?
Yeah, it depends now why it's happened as we pan at the mechanic. He will be confident from feeling when he puts the wheel on with the wheel gun. They're spinning at up to 20,000 RPM, these wheel guts, and you can hear them, you can feel them. So he would have gone fine, and they're not in a mad rush, not like the race. They're still in a rush, but not crazy. As you can see, the weight distribution of a Mercedes with a V8 in the front versus the rear axle there. So they're quite front limited, aren't they, on the tyre there? But yeah, I think the wheel nut's there. But yeah, race control will for sure look at that. And maybe Piana's done the team a big favour by stopping before the wheel comes off.
There you can see what's underneath a Mercedes AMG GT3. Not a great end to the season last year. Remember, this was a team that had its car quite badly damaged in a large shunt in Barcelona. They've been racing in the Asian Le Mans series during the winter months as well. But the Winwood Racing Mercedes AMG about to be lowered onto the flatbed and off to the pit lane it will go. Meanwhile, the fans are ready and they will be up for the resumption of the session, which still has 17 minutes on the clock. In other words, about 7 minutes for this first wave of cars.
Yeah, the other thing race control did well is the timing of the red flag being so speedy, it stopped anyone in this session registering a lap time. So at the moment, it's fair for everybody. Everybody was out there, so they've maybe taken the tops off their tyres in this session, but no one got a lap in, so it is all fair in this second part of qualifying 2A, as we should call it. And yeah, the teams will now be having to change a few timings on their tyre ovens when they're going to be releasing cars, and then suddenly this session is going to be much more condensed, isn't it? We've effectively lost 30% of Q2A's running, so suddenly all that traffic's going to look a lot worse.
And even though there are 7 minutes to go, you can take at least 2 out of that because of an out lap. Then you've got to do your first push lap. We also understand from Bryn in the pit lane that the number 2 Porsche has had a throttle sensor issue. This is the car that Maurice Scheuring had in Q1. Dorian Boccolacci now, Alessio Picariello for Q3. Maurice Scheuring's first race in Europe of the season. Although GT drivers have been busy elsewhere. Late start for Europe. So good that he's going to be on track. But qualifying already compromised, sadly, for the Boots and VDS team, as the recovery of the 87 Mercedes AMG almost done.
Does give the 2 cars some time to work, at least this red flag. So if it's a throttle sense, hopefully they can just change it quickly and recalibrate and get that car back out for the other 2 remaining sessions at least.
Gabriele Piana, very experienced driver. We've talked about him a lot in terms of his success in GT4, but he's a very experienced GT3 racer as well. And having somebody like him in that situation, able to feel what the car was doing and be able to report back to the team and work with them to know what to do, whether to limp round or park, has probably saved them quite a lot of damage. That's Charles Dawson's 2C's car, the Mercedes AMG, set ready to go.
Perversely, he's actually quite lucky on the red, wasn't he? Because he was always going to lose his first flyer for track limits at turn 2. So he's now gone, or at least no one else got a lap on the board. So everyone's fair and 2C's ready to release. And that's the positive of being on pit exit, is they are ready to go. And that's why we've seen that car get out so quickly out on circuit.
The nature of Paul Ricard these days, lots of different layouts and therefore cut-throughs and access points. So it shouldn't take long to get that recovery vehicle off the circuit and get the cars back underway. But as yet, no call for the fast lane being open.
No, and the team will Winwood. You can see the gap where the car should be between the man filter car. And unfortunately for the team, that is on the outside of the circuit. So that is now going to be quite a long way back to pit lane. I'm not sure we're going to see that car again in qualifying.
Well, we're back in business in as much as the cars now making their way down the pit lane, and we are 1 minute and 10 seconds away from the session getting underway. So now then you can see the queue starts to build. If you're pit out, of course, then during the race, as soon as your pit stop's done, you just accelerate away. You don't have to worry about a pit lane speed limit because you're virtually at the line. But the flip side is it's a very long, slow drive all the way to your box in the first place.
Yeah, there's a few logics on it, and at the end of pit lane you have to wait for cars that are in the fast lane already. They've got priority. So in the race you'd rather be at the start of pit lane to get into fast lane earlier.
Mathis Lismont's BMW. There's the Lion Speed Porsche. That's Anthony Bartone in number 6. And the queue starts to build, and that has loose wheel written all over it. Yeah,
the wheel nut definitely isn't seated right, and it's rubbed against its own arch. It's actually taken some of the Preddy branding off the tyre wall, and that can be because of a puncture, but in this instance I think it's because it's rolled outwards and rubbed against its own arch.
Well, could have been a lot worse is what the team will be thinking, but it's compromised the grid position for sure, as we are seconds away from the green flag, getting this session back underway now. So the cars make their way back out on track with effectively 7 minutes available still to this group. That's all.
Yeah, it's really not much, is it? And like you said, by the time they finish out that's going to be 5 minutes remaining straight away. So maximum 3 flying laps, more like 2 for the majority of the field.
So everybody pouring out on track for this first group. Don't forget that you have your bronzes and silvers first up, then the golds and the pros go in the second wave, just to give a clearer track to the field and give them a better chance of getting some clear qualifying laps. Talk about people switching brands. Another one is the Ziggo Sport Tempesta Racing Squad. Chris Froggatt and Eddie Cheever remain together. Stefano Costatini joins, but they are Porsche mounted this year, which is quite a step for Chris Froggatt. Okay, he has driven other things like Mercedes, like McLaren, But a Porsche, that's very different for him.
Yeah, he's done all 3 engine placements now, hasn't he? Front in the Mercedes back in the day, mid with Ferrari and McLaren, and now rear with the Porsche. So Foggett keeping himself on his toes. There we see Valentino Rossi in the 46. What's he going to be able to do? And hearing from the team, it's been a struggle at times for Valentino just to keep the car off the track limit sensors, and that's going to be hard in qualifying especially.
But it is by his choice to come back, and we're really glad that he is back in GT World this year. He likes the atmosphere in the paddock. He likes this style of racing. I think, although he did have his spell in WEC, I think he enjoyed less the fact that he was always looking in his mirrors at faster cars and lappery, whereas here he can fight for a win. Yeah,
and he's looking at the data, so it shows you how competitive he is. He's obviously getting the data out of the car of Q1 as we see a race between Leesmont and Antares. Al doing a good job there, just letting Leesmont go. Leesmont should be that bit quicker, silver graded driver versus bronze, and that could actually help Al in the Porsche just to hit his marks and give a bit of a target to follow on this lap.
Yeah, Mathis Leesmont, who's been a class winner in the Zolder 24-hour Belgian Enduro. He came out of motocross through Fun Cup and GT racing. He's been pretty busy in the last few seasons and getting better and better all the time as he gets more experienced. So his Team WRT BMW then onto a flying lap. He shares with Amaury Cordil and former touring car star Ignacio Montenegro. So there's the BMW coming down through turn 4 and 5, down to first gear for this very sharp right. You see how he hits the brakes, and the poise of the car changes as it stands on the nose.
Yeah, and it's the purple sector, sorry, because it is the first of the session, even though we have been going for more than 5 minutes. That red flag stopped anyone there. It's a good first sector for the BMW, and the BMW very strong as well in sector 2, which is dominated by this back straight. The sector actually finishes just in the brake zone here into senior corner, and it looks like he's going to get this first lap completely clear. The next car in front is only just at the last corner now, so he's going to have lots of space. He just needs to keep it clean and tidy to get a good lap on the board for his 30 car.
So he's doing purple sectors by dint of being the first driver really through them. Nothing was set by anybody prior to that red flag. And what Leesmont has done here, crucially, he's put himself in clear track space. Yeah, he has, and that's so important here, because you catch a car, it isn't just the overtaking element that loses you time. The dirty air following the car, you lose downforce, so you can't generate the speed and the grip that you need. So that's where the clear air is so important in qualifying. So Leesmont accelerates towards the end of a lap. Remember that in terms of the grid formation, it is the average of the 3 drivers. Therefore, okay, you might be quick. Your bronze, if that's the case, maybe less so. But the way of doing that, again, is a safety thing. It doesn't have cars out of position, does it? It doesn't have quick cars with a bronze in up at the front and in jeopardy, and others having to carve their way through. So the grid does have a kind of, not normality, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it is organic, the way that the times all filter. You don't have anybody in the wrong place, unless they've had a problem in qualifying, like the 87 Mercedes, for example.
Yeah, and Rapongier was purple in 2, but has backed out of it, and that was because he was about to get traffic, so he's decided, I'm going to have to find some space. The engineer will be telling the driver on the track map, right, we've got some space, and he's got an amazing amount of space behind him, so he actually needs to probably back up a little bit more as we jump on board with the 67 car here of Hart coming towards the end of sector 1, and this is where we start to see the cars really working hard on the throttle, tucking it into the inside, and then the Mercedes can start to open up. Should be easy flat through the left here. No problem at all, just upshifting up to 4th, legal on the track limits. And this is the distance where we'll just be starting to get a slight bit of slipstream. The car up ahead of us will be punching a hole in the air 2 seconds up the road, and we'll just be starting to benefit from that car, and it's the 12 car in front, so it's another Mercedes from GetSpeed, so should be able to get a good sector 2 here. Sure enough is green, so this is going to be a pretty good lap for the 67 car so far. Hooks up the apex, a huge snap. Have we got an onboard camera curse here? Every time we go on board with the car, suddenly it just goes Larry. And yes, we use a lot of apex curb at 10, but the car should be able to take that, and I think that would be Hart's excuse to the team. Yes, I hit the curb, but the damping should be able to take that out, but you would say at the moment the 67 car unable to use the apex curb at turn 10.
It certainly did look like a big whack of the curve, didn't it, from the GetSpeed Mercedes of Jason Hart. Very experienced driver. He's done a lot of racing over his time, but coming to Europe this year, let's look from the outside and see exactly how much curb he did take.
You can see it hop up, but it's the down part of the curb as he comes back round. But I mean, I used to do a lot of testing development here, and one of my little treats to myself was to take the bollard off the apex of turn 10 after a while. And so you would be using that much curb. So I appreciate it's a big bang, but these modern GT3 cars should be able to ride the curb and more there without issue.
Looking at Rahal Fry down in the pit lane as the Herbert Motorsport Porsche of Hugh van Eindhoven comes up towards the end of the lap. Absolute best had been set in the first sector, but that has now been taken away by Mathis Lismont. Fastest, by the way, is treble 5, Romain Andriola at the wheel of the car right now. The former single-seater driver, Romain Andriola, who was a Mustang pilot last year, switching to the CSA Racing McLaren for this year.
Van Eindhoven comes across the line. Good lap, good sector 3, and you knew it was a good lap because he stayed in a straight line to the finish line. He didn't want to do any extra meterage, so he decided to run it to the line, and it was a good lap there in the 91 Porsche.
Now, another question that people may pose, of course, looking at 6 hours of racing, as you see Lance Stroll getting set to go, is how much importance is placed on qualifying. It's not like a 10-lap sprint. You know, you've got 6 hours, but part of it is it's way, way up the curb goes Lismont there. You want to be up near the front of the grid and out of trouble, don't you?
Yeah, massively. You would give a lot of money to buy a few positions if motorsport was that corrupt. But yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's a crescendo, but it really is intent as well. It's very rare we see cars coming outside of the top 20 to the front. It's a statement of intent qualifying.
Checker flag is out as Hugh van Eindhoven is the fastest in the Porsche, the Herbert car, having been a Porsche 1 mate racer in recent seasons. And Romain Andriolo looking to try to improve. The pit exit is green so that the circuit will fill up, and then you'll get that crossover of cars on track for the resumption, or the continuation rather, and others coming into the pit lane having done their work in Group A. So Van Eindhoven from Andriolo. Lismont didn't improve on his last lap. In fact, lost a bit of time in the last sector.
It was a good lap from Andriolo there, and takes the car up to first position at the cost of this Ford Mustang, and Sebastian Boud as well. And the Aston Martin has knocked that car down to third place. That's how quickly it goes. 20 seconds ago, this car was our pole position car, and now he's third.
Yeah, Eduardo Cosseteng 9th in the Mustang. As you look there at the now Chris Lullen-driven Verstappen Racing Mercedes AMG. Remember, he's a very experienced, very successful sim racer, as well as real-world racer, radical champion. Starred in gold, didn't he, last year to be the Endurance Cup champion.
You see the window there, half of it blacked out, the front half, and that's because of the reflection out the mirror from the headlights behind you. So in the race, you don't want these headlights starting you, so their teams tend to blank off only the front half of the window.
This is the final corner that you're looking at, turn 15, where the pin is pulled. Now there is something we've not really looked at much, the Rutronic Racing Lamborghini. So remember last year, Patrick Niederhauser won the Endurance Championship in the final round in Barcelona. It was a very tense affair. Well, this year, different drivers to join him, and also a different car for Rutronic Racing. They have got the Porsche in bronze, but the Temerario GT3 of Luca Engschler, Marco Mappelli and Patrick Niederhauser for this year. And Marco Mappelli is the man behind the wheel, a hugely experienced Lamborghini racer.
Yeah, and a good guy as well. We were teammates back in the day at Barwell, so Marco's one of the good guys out there. Lamborghini rate him very highly, and that's why he's been on their books for over a decade now. It looks like this new Lamborghini is struggling slightly, doesn't it? It doesn't look like it's got a particular weakness. It's just the lap time isn't there at the moment. They've been struggling to break into the top 40 all week here at Paul Ricard, and of course, developing a whole new race car is no mean feat, and it looks a little bit difficult at the moment for the drivers to be where we're used to seeing them. Obviously, Spa 24-hour winners last year with Grasser, and at the moment, this Lambo not singing like we're used to.
And Luca Engschler, who was a touring car champion, like his father, not that many years ago, Luca, he's become a really good GT driver in a short space of time. He did have a sizable accident at Macau a couple of years ago, but he came back from injury there to be a Spa winner, as Joe was saying last season. So Mappelli at the wheel at Le Beausset, going green, bit of opposite lot, bit of correction needed coming out of Le Beausset as the speed builds. It does look relatively high at the front when he accelerates.
Yeah, the whole car looks soft, doesn't it? When you get that shot where you can see fully underneath it, the car is rolling and pitching, and that can be a positive. It gives you feeling as a driver of what it's doing, but the negative is that weight continues to transition that way, and that's when the car can get quite snappy. So, yeah, for sure at the moment, it looks like this Lamborghini is very soft. It'll be interesting to see if Grasser, who are just behind us on track, have got the similar sort of setup between the two cars.
Yeah, have a look to see which team is operating the faster of the new Temporarios. Meanwhile, we also need to keep an eye on how the Lance Stroll Aston Martin is getting on. Well, here he is coming down to the turn 4-5 section. Lance 10th twice in an Aston Martin at Le Castellet in Formula 1, but now turning his attention to a very different sort of race car. And to go from an F1 chassis to this is a massive, massive step, massive difference, but he's on the money, isn't he?
Yeah, 8 tenths down in Sector 1, so it's probably going to be in the 54s, which in Q2 I think is probably going to put him somewhere in the top 20. But yeah, the differences cannot be bigger jumping from an F1 car to a GT car, and it feels like it should be the same sport, right? It's all under the motorsport umbrella, but it does everything differently. The engine's in a different place, the weight of the car, the downforce, the power. It's a complete relearning for Lance Stroll, and like I said, fair play for him, putting his neck on the line and just coming out here to fill his calendar up.
Absolutely. But really interesting to see how much more attention there is on GT3 racing from that Formula 1 paddock, not only with Lance, but also Max Verstappen's interest, partly by his own team, but also by his desire to go racing as well. So right now, we've got a Porsche quickest in this part of the session. It's Thomas Preining's car that is at the top from Romain Andriolo, and then it's 71 Ferrari, which is currently in the hands of Malte Ebdrup. So start to put things in order, and Marco Sorensen now is the fastest in Q2.
Good to see Jake Dennis back out there as well in G2O Challenge. Busy British driver, of course, these days with all his other commitments, and been given the nod by BMW here. This 98 car was very strong, wasn't it, last year? So WRT and Rover Racing really pushing these BMWs up the order. So I think Jake Dennis will be happy. 12th in this session, 54.8. He won't be happy with that lap though. We want to try and trim a bit out of that. It was all 3 sectors. There wasn't really a standout issue across the 3.
What you're looking at on that graphic is the combined, so that's your provisional grid as it evolves, whereas Romain Andriolo is the fastest in this isolated Q2 in the McLaren. He's now in the pit lane, so the best of those on track is Max Hesse, who is up to 2nd ahead of Sorensen, and now Arthur Rougier going to 4th on the grid ahead of Jordan Pepper. How's 007 doing? Well, Marco Sorensen is at Le Bossé, as you see. The Dane accelerates out of the corner, and the 2024 CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa winner, also class winner in the FIA World Endurance Championship, heads now up towards the timing line with only 2 3/4 minutes to go.
Yeah, and I love the Aston Martin, the sound of the anti-lag as it's off-throttle into corner. You can just hear the turbos keep spinning up, and that's where viewing at the circuit is just the best. And the crowds were huge coming in this morning, weren't they? And I think that's just to see, well, half the cars, but also you, David, of course, but it's just getting bigger and bigger. The whole circus of GT racing has got some serious momentum.
And the next stop for GT World Challenge Europe will be in the UK. The opening sprint races over the first weekend of May Bank Holiday weekend, the Saturday and Sunday at Brands Hatch. So if you want to come and experience what GT3 is all about, the World GT Series will be for Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch. But in 2 weeks' time, British GT kicks off at Silverstone. So again, a chance to see comparable cars. And I think both Joe and I would seriously commend you, if you haven't ever been, to come to join us at Spa, because the CrowdStrike 24 Hours at Spa is always a mega event. Not only because it's the biggest and best GT3 race in the world, but also because from Thursday morning onwards, the track is never still. And in fact, why not come out a week early and experience British GT the previous weekend and make a proper 10-day festival of it?
I'm sold. I'll see you there. That's fine with me. And we're just looking at where the cars are now sitting in the order. The McLarens back up there. Louis Pret and McDonald took over those positions, didn't they, from the previous session, but they've done the job to get them back up there on the overall.
Arthur Rouget looking good. He's always a bit underrated, is Arthur Rouget, but he's very, very quick, whether it was in Audis years ago or now McLaren's. And as he goes through, he has just done the fastest time of this session, and that puts the car now 6th. This is Lukas Stolz in 48. So he now joins the Engel combination. That makes it a very, very strong car again. I know Mathieu Cairoli was good last year, but we know that Stolz specialises in Mercedes.
Yeah, this car could go faster in the session, I think. If this is a sub sort of 153.4, he's going to be right on the money. Sector 3 is a very Mercedes-friendly sector as well as he pushes to the line. Where's this clock going to stop? It's going to be a low 53. Is it good enough to be fastest? It is. Cool. Purple Sector 3 as well.
Good call. So Lukas Stolz then fastest in Q2 on a 153.402, and also puts that car onto provisional pole position. This is Max Hesse, who is heading for the pit lane in the BMW that he shares with Dan Harper and Valentino Rossi.
Yeah, 5th over the rule, so good sessions from Harper and Hesse. Now it's over to the doctor. What's he ordered? Where can he put this car?
And key to some of that is going to be track limits, making sure he avoids Thomas Preining. Meanwhile, in number 80 Porsche, coming up towards the line. This is the car that he shares with Bastien Bus and Ricardo Feller. That's a competitive car, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good to see Lion Speed with a full pro lineup this year. They've been getting better and better season on season, but this season is a real statement of intent, and yeah, it should be a strong car. 4th overall after 2 sessions is looking that way. Wow.
Yeah, Preining has just gone 4th, not only on that average, but also within the session. As you look at Maxi Goetz here, another Mercedes veteran, but very, very quick, and he was on his toes through senior. It's a bit Larry.
Yeah, the first 2 corners we've seen this guy, he chucks it in, watches the car turns in. It's almost like he's going from straight steering to full 90 degrees, get this car in, and he's having to hustle hard. And that's what you tend to see when the tyres dropped off. The driver knows he's got to do something different, something special to make the car go quicker. So it looks like he's given it everything he's got. He's going to finish the lap as well, so that's going to give the team slightly less time to get this car turned around for the final qualifying session. But what can he do? 11th overall at the moment. A 10th will lift him up 2 or 3 places, so it's worth finishing the lap if he thinks it's good. It is an improvement, but not on position. But because it's the aggregate, it's still worth taking the positive of an improved lap time.
So you're looking then at Marco Sorensen heading up towards the timing line and to take the checkered flag. So by staying out, he must feel that an improvement can be found. Let's see whether he does improve. The car is 5th, the car stays 5th, but bookended by a good 1st and 3rd sector there.
Yeah, and we're starting again just to see the silver and the bronze cars filtered out of the top 25, aren't we? So on your timing tower there, white background is pro, the sort of yellowy gold is gold, the blue background is silver, and the 25th place car of Kellett, the 991 Paradigm BMW, is the bronze class. So there are 4 classes all represented in the top 25, but the pro and the golds, with the nature of their higher performing drivers, are going to be at the front.
So that's the car that tops the times at the moment. Number 48, the Mercedes AMG, the man-filter liveried car, ran out of the Winwood stable of Lukas Auer, Lukas Stolz, and Mauro Engel, winner already of the Bathurst 12 hour, and he will be aboard the car. So the next part of qualifying is being readied, Q3. Clock ticking on down. Of course, that delay to retrieve 87 has already bumped things a little bit late, but the team's working to their plan, their programme, and knowing exactly what point they need to be in the fast lane.
Positive for Winwood is now the 87 car's not there. They've got more room to surface their remaining car in the pit lane. Team happy with the job done there by Stolz, and can they keep the car there? The gaps are tight, aren't they? Like we're saying, a 10th literally moves you 2 or 3 places each time, so it's going to get very tight in this final session.
So Lukas Stolz out of the car. He was the silver champion in sprint going back to 2016. He's been an endurance champion as well as a double winner of the Bathurst 12 hours. We were talking about what it's like to come to a GT World Challenge race. Well, I've got to tell you, some English friends of mine have come for the very first time. They're out in the grandstand, and one has just sent me a message saying, mate, this is unreal. So there you go, GT3 racing certainly has an impact on you.
That I can believe. I can't believe that you've got a mate, however. But when you see the slow-mo of these cars, you can see the precision the drivers are placing them.
Let's hear from Luca Stoltz, and welcome back to the pit lane, Gemma Scott.
Thank you very much, David. Well, Luca, great to see you up there at the front. You're no stranger to the front of this grid, of course. First race of the season, it's difficult to know what's ahead this season, but that's a nice way to start it. Fastest there in Q2.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't really know where it came from because, to be honest, the last 2 days we had quite some struggle. But the boys and girls in Winwood, they did an amazing job overnight and they gave us a really, really good car. Luki did the first step and then, the engineer just gave me a great car and was a good lap, and I hope Maro can continue now.
Absolutely, and is that the kind of improvement to the car that you can see helping you in the race there?
Well, I hope so. Usually the hotter temperatures suit the AMG quite well, and last year we had kind of a struggle in the race, but let's see. I'm looking forward to it.
So are we. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Luca Stoltz, very, very experienced driver. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not somebody we often talk about in terms of making mistakes. He's always a really quick but safe pair of hands, and there he is. He's put the car top of the times for now.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise you when he's just got out of a race car. He's just gone pole. He's just been doing maybe 300 kilometres an hour, and it just feels like he's just woken up. He's metronomically relaxed, and that's what manufacturers want from their professional drivers. And in that car, when you've got Auer, Engel and Stoltz, that's going to be up there again this season.
Is it ever? So right now it is Mercedes 48 overall provisional pole from McLaren number 58, which is the Fleming Pret entry. Benji Goethe to take over, and Marvin Kirchhoff will take over the third placed car. Right now the treble 5 McLaren is heading silver, and bronze now is Dries Van Thor, James Kellett and Darren Lung. You could say, what on earth is Dries Van Thor doing in a bronze car? Well, Darren Lung is the bronze graded driver, British GT champion, so we know he's a very quick bronze. And Dries, who's driven for Paradigm before, brought into the team for this weekend. Paradigm, I think, are also going to do British GT's 3-hour race at Silverstone in a couple of weeks, and it'll be intriguing to see whether Dries finds a berth in that. But yeah, bronze is going to be a mega fight. Really is, and the order they've done it is different as well. Lung is going to go last, so he's bronze against some of the cars that have already put their bronze in, like Jewis is now against Lung effectively, Hartog is against him. So those top bronze cars, where they put the bronze in, suddenly it's going to be very hard for Darren to keep that 991 top of bronze. But it goes back to what we were saying earlier on about Johnny Adam going out first, so you want your pro perhaps when the car is at its not worse, but it's less compliant with the heavy fuel load. First time onto the racetrack. But in theory, it should all balance out anyway, shouldn't it? Because, yeah, OK, Darren might struggle in terms of the individual times in that session, but on the average, the combined average, then it should still be in the mix. And there, number 42 BMW is the car that the returning Ahmad Al-Hafi shares with Javier Sagrera, former single-seater racer, and another driver returning, the dual nationality English-Australian Callan Williams, who didn't race at all last year, but was silver champion in sprint back in 2024. He's been a gold champion in sprint and indeed overall gold champion in the past as well, but he's been upgraded now through the driver categorisation. So actually, he said finding a home has been harder because of his success and because of the upgrade. Yeah, it's the difficult world and the murky world of driver gradings, and yeah, it's always a battle to try and keep your grading as low as possible, and that's always seems counterintuitive, but yeah, it's much easier to find a drive when you're a lower grade, essentially. So the session back live for a further 20 minutes, 10 of which go to Group A, which is your bronze and silver entries, and then as you look at Callan Williams, based in Somerset these days, the Australian. Then we'll have the gold and the Pro Cup cars for the second half. But Callan, very, very quick driver, and good to have him back. Australian Formula 3 champion, as also is Marco Mappelli, fascinating fact, 37. And Callan Williams wriggling his way up now towards the Mistral Straight. He got as far as Formula 2 a few years ago, and then switched direction and was immediately competitive, wasn't he, in GT racing? Yeah, he did a really good transition, and it's the least single-seater like car as well, the BMW, because it is front engine, it's the biggest, it's the longest wheelbase, so he did it the hardest way possible as well. So yeah, been an amazing talent in GT3 world so far. First lap time to be cancelled goes Kian Jewis's way in the 2Cs Mercedes AMG. Callum Williams there showing how you do run through senior, using the curb but keeping those right-hand wheels the right side of the white line. So he might have sat out last season, but he's not rusty, is he?
No, really. It's an interesting Jewis turn 2. Saw Dawson, his teammate, at turn 2 in the 222 car.
Yeah.
So that 2C's Mercedes not liking the exit of turn 2.
I'll have to rename it, yes. The Anglo-Bahraini team, if you're wondering where the 2C's name comes from. And there, Mercedes getting going. Now, why was it so slow coming off the corner? Was that to try to let the traffic go?
Yeah, I think everyone's just bunching up in that final sector, and that's really hurt Williams there. He might get away with it. It was a distraction more than a physical hold-up, but that is the last thing you want to see. And he crosses the line. He goes first car to do it, but 55.2 won't be where he wants to be.
Over the timing line, then they go. It was Philip Ellis in that blue Mercedes. It goes quite well for Mercedes in America. Number 60 Ferrari, you can see also turning through, is Tim Heinemann at the wheel. Green sectors on his first proper flying lap as Max Hoffer's number 9 Porsche now goes to the top. Only 5.5 minutes then for these cars in this part of qualifying.
Just watching Heinemann here, the car again all over the place. He's really having to hustle hard here. Track temperature is coming up quite quickly, and as it comes up, it's now 35 degrees Celsius. It does start to lose grip, and I think maybe that's what we're seeing some of the teams struggling with, is just making sure the tyre is in the perfect operating window. Tim
Heinemann in the JMW Ferrari, JMW Motorsport team that's been on ELMS grids for many, many seasons. Couldn't find a home there, so has come to World Challenge Europe this year. There's a slight British Touring Car Championship link, in as much as not only is Tim Sugden very involved in the team, Tim had a spell in that, but Spencer Aldridge, Tom Ingram's race engineer in the BTCC, is also part of the race engineering crew of that Ferrari this weekend. And elsewhere, there's another link to the British Touring Car Championship. Ash Sutton back in GT World Challenge, certainly for this weekend. And he's at Paradigm in one of the 2 BMWs, and with Hooray, none of the GT World Challenge Europe events clashing with touring cars. Maybe we'll see a bit more of him this year. Yeah, it'd be really good. Ash, we've spoken about before when he raced at Monza last year. Very quick in everything he drives, so great for him to be able to get out of a touring car and come and drive some proper cars every now and again. And you can see how he gets on in touring cars in a week's time with the season opener. Kobe Powell's here. He's somebody else that's really come on, hasn't he, over the last couple of seasons. He's done all the mileage and he's got faster. The errors have been ironed out, and the former rallycrosser, his dad a quick rallycrosser many moons ago, also of course through the Aston Martin Academy, who won that last year, to stay in the family. He's getting held up by Darren Lung there, and he had to overtake, but he's that compromised his next lap already. It's hurt Darren Lung as well, and that's the problem with the traffic. The engineers do their best to find you the space, but they don't know the ultimate pace of all cars. And when I driver coach someone in a series, you have a list of cars to avoid, and that's all you can do. But when there's 32 out in this session, the avoid list will be longer than the not avoid, effectively. Now, meanwhile, Luke Hartog here, the very, very tall Dutch driver, nearly Marseille there. So why did he run coming through senior? Are we safe in saying that would be a track limit? Might be. The only time is sometimes you go so wide the camera actually doesn't catch you because you're out of shot the other side. But we saw the snap of oversteer again there. The breeze is coming in from the south, which is a side draft there, which is quite rare. It's normally on the nose for the cars here. I think that's why we're seeing so many cars looking so leery so often. 65 Mustang rumbles on. Maxime Osten now at the wheel, switching from BMW to go to HRT, Hap Racing Team this year. Maxime Osten really impressed last season. Yet another of these quick young guns that we have coming into GT World. Yeah, and he's got on top of this Ford and the Evo Ford. I was speaking yesterday to HRT. Quite impressed with the Evo updates that they've been given, and it's going to give it performance. But also, the big one they're saying is actually it's a different wheel design, letting hot air out of the wheel. So it looks after the brakes, but also the tyre temp. So Multimatic doing a good job on that Mustang, and it's always great to hear that car thunder past. Right, over the timing line will come Maxime Osten in a moment, then to break the beam to see where that's going to put the car. Goes quickest of all within the average, so Maxime Osten does a 1:53.988. The best of anybody actually in Q3 thus far is Josh Rattican, who's done a 53.7, 25 thousandths quicker than Philip Ellis, who's now gone faster than Maxime Osten. Number 5, McLaren in the meantime, is Guillaume Oliveri at the wheel, and he comes up towards the line. Oliveri now to see what he can do to promote that car, the Optimum entry. Battleline is overseeing it all as ever. number 6 Mercedes goes through. Kobe Powell's now goes up to the top of the times on a 53.696.
And that's a mega lap, because we know he was compromised at the start of that, having to get past Darren Lung. So really good job there from Kobe Powell.
This is Cesar Gazzo, who switches, like Aurelian Panis, from Boutsen to Get Speed, but stays with Mercedes, the former GT4 racer. Right, Josh Rattigan, who is second in the times, has brought the McLaren into the pit lane, 44, which is the Greystone entry that he shares with Tommy Pintos and Jaden Kelly, both McLaren Trophy Europe champions. And Gazzo heading up towards the line. Again, good in sector 1, losing out a little bit in that long middle sector, but he's coming up towards the beam now. So 11th the car is, 10th it now is.
Yeah, and this is where the tyre really starts to drop off. And I've said about the drop off, how much is it? It can be up to 2 seconds a lap from your first lap to around lap 8, where it finally plateaus then for the remainder of its life. And as a driver, you're looking for 10th. So when 2 seconds is taken out of your pocket, there's no way you're going to come back from that.
So you're on board now with Philip Ellis, number 67 Mercedes, as the speed starts to build again. Drops it down through the gears, down to first gear for that final corner. And then back onto the pit straight once again. Lawrence Leclerc in the meantime heading towards the completion of a lap. Former Alpine Cup champion, and another one to join the CSA ranks this year.
Yeah, it's looked quick, CSA, haven't they, from the get-go, and home track for them. And like I said earlier in the show, this is their home track, and they went really well here last year comparatively to the rest of the year. So they obviously have a good Paul Ricard setup. And at the moment, that car second in class, second overall. Of course, that's going to change as we see the Gold and the Pro cars now releasing out of pit lane. So this is the crossover point. So any of the silver or bronze cars now who have crossed the line have to come into the pits this lap. And that allows the other cars who haven't set a time in this session, the Pro and the Golds, 26 of them, 32 in this first part of the A session. And there we can see Ben Dorr into the championship for the first time. Been racing with the family team in DTM, with McLaren, but now he's linked up with RJN. It'll be interesting to see how that lineup gets on this year, and he's still pushing hard. The average time you can see there, 55.0. So for him to improve a 10th on the average, of course he has to find 3 tenths, and that's where the marginal gain stuff becomes so important for the combined times.
So right now, Kobe Powell's is the fastest within Q3, and he's put 21 Aston Martin onto provisional pole position on the average. That's the car shared with Oliver Söderström and Sebastian Bode, although don't forget Söderström was under investigation in Q1 for maybe improving under a yellow in one of the sectors. We've yet to get the other half of the entry into Q3, and we're not far away from that as you look now at Valentino Rossi, who is good to go.
Super focused, and we've seen him compete at the highest level. It was great to have him back as a one-off last year, wasn't it, at Misano, and he was super fast, getting straight back into it. WRT, one of the teams, if not the team to beat in this championship as well, will be giving him the fastest car possible.
Checker flag has gone to Q3A, the first group, in other words, the bronzes and the silvers. Their qualifying work done, and their overall grid position is now going to be dictated in part by what the golds and the pros do. Ben Dorr, as Joe was saying, coming to Bob Neville's Team RJN squad this year, and he improved last time through. There's number 80 Porsche, the car that we were saying earlier on is in the Lion Speed camp. Bastian Buus, Thomas Preining, and now Ricardo Feller, who of course was sprint champion for Attempto and Audi going back a few seasons. Last year, Ricardo drove for Lion Speed, but in bronze, so he was always quick, but the results were always class-based. Great to have him being able to fight again, though, for overall success.
Yeah, and he's got a mega bit of real estate in front. The 17 cars just leaving pit exit in front of him, I can see. Hopefully that gets out of his way somewhere in Sector 2. Gets in front of the CSA McLaren, and now he can focus. 7 minutes remaining, 3 or 4 time laps, and this car could be somewhere right at the sharp end by the end.
And I think it's going to be the same in the race, isn't it? Because with Bastian Buus and Thomas Preining as co-drivers, you've got a very, very good lineup there. Bastian Buus having starred in Asia a week ago. He was quick there in the opening rounds in Sepang. So Porsche number 80 up now towards the Mistral through this speed building section. and now onto the Mistral itself.
The 17 Merc let him go there in the most passive, aggressive way possible. Didn't hold him up, but was on the racing line where he would have wanted to be in an ideal world. He still would have been flat through turn number 7 onto the Mistral straight, but the 17 car did him no favours whatsoever, but didn't hurt him either.
So through Scene comes Ricardo Feller, and now on towards Le Bourset, this long corner. You go into it in 4th, you need to drop down to 3rd as you veered off and then get back on the power. You've got to be fairly patient as well through that part of the circuit. That high curb you just saw on the outside that you do not want to straddle if you can at all avoid it.
Yeah, we've seen that historically the Porsche doesn't like big curbs. It can damage the floor quite easily. Remember the Suzuka 1000K where the floor started to come loose, and that is from curb strikes. So the Porsche has to be careful. Yes, in qualifying you can risk it a bit more. You've got time to fix the car for the race, but you still have to be careful of these large serrated curbs.
So the largely grey Porsche up towards the line. Ricardo Feller goes through. Goes fastest. So Ricardo Feller up to the top. The lap that he has just done is a 53.653 with an absolute best 3rd sector, and he's put the car now to the top of the times on that average. However, stand well back. Marvin Kirchhofer is on track.
Yeah, and we got bored last year, didn't we, of saying Marvin Kirchhoff of Garage 59 on pole.
Yeah.
He was in the form of his life, and he's had a busy off-season, racing a few different brands and different types of cars as well here at Paul Ricard. So he'll be in a good headspace, and this car's look quick, both the 59 and the 58.
Kobe Powell's a happy man as well after his efforts. We might hear from him with Bryn in a moment as they catch up on life. And all smiles in the garage. Right, bouncing over the curb is Kirchhofer, but it proves that he's really trying.
Yeah, he used a lot of curb at turn 1. The bollard there has obviously been removed by someone previous to him, so he's able to hustle it over. Again, you use lots of curb here on the right. The bollard has gone there. Hook it up here. You've got to be careful of track limits on the exit of the next corner at 5. So he's going to keep it hard. We get on the throttle, keeps it legal, gets it in early. Car always understeers here as it tends to go off camber. Full throttle now, all the way through up to 4th gear. The twin-turbo McLaren 4-litre V8 pushing hard through the air, and he's got a lot of space in front of him at the moment as well, so he'll be happy. He's got a huge gap in front and behind. Garage 59 doing a good job of finding him this space. Up to 6th gear. McLaren actually get rid of the shift lights in 6th, because as a driver he's complaining, it's just boring, I can't shift up to 7. So just get rid of them, and then the night it stops dazzling you. And then what are we going to carry through here? So dab on the brakes, chuck it in. Like you said, 220, 230 kilometers an hour through a 90-degree right-hander. Shows you how fast these GT cars are. Double apex here at Le Bourset. Let it run out wide. Patience, patience. It's out wide, and the grip there just drops off ever so slightly on the painted, but he does well to get a second apex. Now into this tricky late apex. So where you want to bring the car in tight is long into the corner, and the car looking super stable. Look at Kirchhoffer's hands. He's able just to one steering motion in, one steering motion out. The balance of this car looks phenomenal. 2 corners to go. Lots of curve on the left. You can get even more on the second part, and one final brake all the way down to 1st gear. 50 Ks, full throttle. Use the traction control. Keep it legal. Does he keep it left to the line? That indicates it's going to be a good lap. He's not sure. He's in the middle of the road. He's not sure if that's going to be good enough for pole position, and at the moment 3rd place.
So it puts him in the mix, but Nicky Tim has gone fastest overall, a 1:53.294 in the number 007 Aston, or 7 if you prefer, and that puts the car also to the top on the average, as both Jules Gounon and Tommaso Mosca are heading up towards the end of the lap as well. So right now you've got Aston Martin ahead of Porsche, ahead of McLaren, because Benji Goethe has just gone 4th on average, and in the 58 numbered Garage 59 entry is into the mix in this isolated session. Let's see what we can get out of Mosca. He's up to 5th then. Maro Engel has just gone 2nd on average in number 48 Mercedes. But it looks like we're going to get an Aston Martin on pole position provisionally. Jules Gounon goes through only 8th then in the Mercedes.
Yeah, it's Nicky Team's lap that's phenomenal. He's 2/10 quicker than anybody in this session. So he has pulled one out as we look at the concentration of Valentino Rossi, the trademark fluoro yellow helmet, gloves, and now he is ready to try and get another lap on the board.
And he's just gone through with 2 minutes to go, so he has got time as a very, very weavy McLaren hits the brakes. Drivers were telling me yesterday that if you're on new tyres, you can attack that corner in third. If they're old tyres and losing their edge, you might just want to drop down to second and just get everything slightly more under control. But that was certainly an attacking line.
Yeah, just the bump there that formed in a lot of brake zones because of the energy. Just looks like the cars aren't fully straight under braking. It really hurts them there. As we look at Birch here in the AF course, the Danish version of AF course, of course, new entry for us, and it's going to be interesting to see where this car can go. Third at the moment in the gold class.
Yeah, Simon Birch we saw in GT2 last season for Razzoon More Than Racing. That team has come into the championship, but this is the Ferrari operated by AF Corsa, but running under the Selected Car Racing banner. And it's an all-Danish combination. Frederik Schandorf, Malte Ebdrup, as well as Simon Birch.
And Schiller has dragged the 17 car up there with a phenomenal lap, a 53.0, so he's now 2/10 quicker than anyone. So he's taken Nicky Team's fastest of the session. Here we can see the 48-man filter car, Engel aboard third at the moment. What can he do? And this will give him one more lap as well, timing as he is going to break the beam now. That car third at the moment, like I said, and it's going to stay third.
And you're back on board with Gunnar, who's had a stronger lap here. He's down to 9th, but green and green means quicker and quicker, sectors 1 and 2, but he only gets up to 8th, so you can imagine there's a bit of head scratching there.
Yeah, and actually Engel is up to pole, so a slight delay on the timing, so it was a good enough lap from Engel to reclaim pole position for the 48.
Yeah, Gunnar has gone third in Q3, but 8th on average. This is where the confusion sometimes can set in. So Fabian Schiller is fastest in Q3 in number 17, but on average that is 5th. Engel in this session is only 11th, but on the average that car is on pole.
Yeah, and that's where that team was strong last year, the 48 car, and watching Benji Goethe here, and he's doing more and more with McLaren, and that's where positive as a driver, the more seat time you get, the quicker you get, and the more at home you feel, and I feel Benji Goethe is definitely benefiting from that.
I think everybody agrees that he has come a long, long way from that first faltering race at Monza in the wet when he came out of the pit lane and crashed almost straight away. He has put that long behind him. He's become a class champion. He's benefited a lot, not only from track time, but also, in fairness, from guidance from Stuart Hall, very quick driver himself, whether it's been in single-seaters or more recently in historic cars, and Stuart working with the Goethe brothers to bring them on. And yeah, Benji has been sponge-like in soaking up what he's been taught and putting it to good use.
Yeah, he really has, and I think Kirchhoff has helped him as well with the data and the video the teams have. That's been a massive benefit, and at the moment he's only 200th slower than Marvin Kirchhoff in this session.
That tells you something, doesn't it? This is Mario Engel, who's on a better lap. Now, don't forget, this is the car that's now on provisional pole position, courtesy of its average lap times. Mario is 12th at the moment in this session, so he comes across the line. The lap looks like it is a better one, and it puts Mario up to 11th in Q3, as Lucas Stoltz there says, yep, that'll do, that's pole. Lucas Auer with the Decra cap on, and the sun is. There he is, congratulating the team. But again, this is a squad that knows how to win not only endurance races, but how to work towards a championship.
Yeah, and just the only sadness I have for that car is what Stoltz said in his interview earlier. In the heat, they're fast. You remember last year's race? They started well, and as the sun sets, the Porsche and the BMW especially get faster. So I think it'd be slightly muted celebrations in the garage. They're happy with today so far, but this afternoon into evening, the race could be different.
You're not proposing we now introduce the balance of weather, are you, to bring in ambient temperatures to confuse life even more? So there's Valentino Rossi. Now, what about Valentino come the end of all of this? Well, the BMWs generally, actually, you've got to say, have not looked that quick. I think we said this 12 months ago, but they came good in the race. Vale was 35th by way of a lap time, and the car is 11th on the average. So it's in the mix.
Yep, it's there, and we saw last year Verts put some really fast stints in, didn't we? And he's only a place higher in 10th, so I think the Rossi car with Hesser and Harper combined will be happy with 11th overall.
That, from memory, is going to be the third Mercedes pole in 4 years at Paul Ricard. So, yeah, certainly in terms of qualifying, it's the weapon of choice. But as Joe rightly points out, a 6-hour race starting in the heat of the sun, early evening, going towards the darkness at midnight. Yes, the conditions, the ambient temperatures will change. So will the circuit, with all that rubber being junked over 6 hours of racing. Very different racetrack at the end compared to what it is at the start.
Yeah, and just looking at the results, obviously Benji Goethe we were talking about, pole in the gold class, so that car's phenomenally up there, second overall. So we saw a good job by Fleming earlier. Didn't see Louis prep much, but we know how strong he was, and he's done a good job. And then Goethe has stroked it home to get that on the front row.
Kirby Powell's Aston topping silver as well, as the cars now make their way into the pit lane. And in the case of number 48, we need that at the pole position area, because there is the Rover Pole Position Award, and it will go the way of Maro Engel, Lucas Auer and Lukas Stolz. Fabian Schiller, though, kind of overlooked. He was fastest in Q3 in number 17 Mercedes, but it's the pole position to this car, and it's the average, not an individual time. So we'll hear from one, maybe all three of the drivers in a moment. Seems odd in a sense, doesn't it? Maro Engel being 11th in the times for his isolated bit, but yet celebrating pole position.
Yeah, and that's where it's a team sport, not an individual. So Maro, I'm sure, knew the job that he needed to do. Could he have found another 2 or 3 tenths if he needed it? Risked some track limits potentially? Maybe, we don't know. He doesn't care. He's got one finger up, P1.
Absolutely right. Good start to his season, winning the Bathurst 12 Hours, which success at Bathurst had eluded him, not only in GT3, but also in his spell down under as a V8 Supercars driver. So it was really a very, very popular result, and one that meant a lot to Maro, who remains one of the nicest guys in the paddock as well. We saw him really in British Formula 3 many, many moons ago when he first came to prominence, but after a spell in the DTM, it's in GT cars where he's really carved his reputation. Maro Engel, along with Lukas Stolz and Lucas Auer, take pole position then. The Rover Pole Position Award goes their way for our first GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Endurance Cup round of 2026. And 58 cars ultimately with a time, with the 87 Winward Mercedes at the other end of the grid. Right, let's hear from Maro Engel then. In his isolated session, 11th fastest, but a great team effort to put the car on provisional pole position. Maro is there, so too is Bryn Lucas.
Well, Maro, it's a hot day, and it's the start of your day done and dusted. It was an ebbing and flowing qualifying session just there, and you mentioned earlier on with your team that it's okay putting this one on pole, but it's going to be a very daunting prospect come later on. Focused on your performance so far today, though.
Yeah, obviously for us it's the perfect start, and all credit to the team. They worked late until last night. We weren't fully happy with the car yesterday. They found some things, and yeah, turned out a great car today, so big thank you to them. Obviously we know the hot conditions suit us a lot on this track, the cold not so much, so for sure the race will be another challenge.
Can you tell us what some of the things were that you found overnight that you needed to adjust?
No?
No hints at all. Your teammates, though, they did what they needed to do. It was a strange qualifying in that it was moving around so much, such an unusual grid in so many different manufacturers and so many different strong points. What are the strong points of this car, and where perhaps do you have to find that extra time?
Yeah, for us, usually the Sector 3 is a strong point for our car. The long straight, not so much, but I think we found a good compromise with our car, so we're looking forward to the race.
Well done. That's the first part of the job done. You are the Rover pole position car. Well done to you and your teammates. It's time to hand over to the presentation. We have Michael Stoppler, the head of global brand marketing for Rover, here to hand over the trophy for the Rover Pole Award.
So well done, Maro Engel, who accepts that on behalf of his teammates, Lukas Stolz and Lucas Auer. But we are set now, I think, for an absolutely fascinating 6 hours with so many battles, not only for the outright win, but also, of course, for the classes as well. And the strategy has to be factored in. There are the co-drivers, a bit late on parade, but they're making their way up the pit lane. Lukas Stolz on the left, Lucas Auer with him. The way that the teams, of course, cycle through drivers. Sometimes Joe and I are talking in the course of this race about teams doing a single stint for drivers. So you go driver 1, 2, 3, then driver 1, 2, 3 again. Some teams will say you'll keep your fastest in for a double stint, so keep them until the very end. You don't necessarily want your bronze having to do the racing in the darkness. Okay, that doesn't apply to every team, but there are all these different ways of dividing up the driving chores, aren't there?
Yeah, essentially it all adds up to the same, but strategy doesn't plan out that way. Full course yellow's more probable at the start of the race, of course. So, you want to, I think, double all 3 drivers, but you have to get the drivers to agree.
And there are also regulations on the drive time that you can't go over or under. So pole goes to Lucas Auer, Lukas Stoltz and Mauro Engel, and second and the gold pole goes to Tom Fleming, Louis Pret and Benji Goethe. Mattia Drudi, Marco Sorensen and Nicky Thiem. Third ahead of Joseph Loeb, Dean McDonald and Marvin Kirchhofer, with Bastien Boost, Thomas Preining and Ricardo Feller's Porsche ahead of the Mercedes AMG of Maxime Martin, Maxi Goetz and Fabian Schiller. In silver, Kirby Powell, Sebastian Bode and Oliver Söderström are the fastest. And outside of that top 20, you will find the bronze pole winner as well. Pole position in bronze to Ralph Bohn, Hugh van Eindhoven, who proved to be really rapid, and Robert Renard, really experienced Porsche crew there, and they're ahead of Johnny Adam, Tom Wood and Giacomo Petrobelli, then Ricky Perra and Taris Au and Luc Hartog within bronze. Picking out one or two more names, Horatio Fitzsimon and Max Lynn, along with Ben Doer, coming to Team RJM. Horatio Fitzsimon, very good in historic single-seaters, very different form of racing for him. Max's father, Sean, racing here this weekend in the GT3 Revival Series. Reigning champion Patrick Niederhauser a long way back, only 41st as they work on that car. And the same true of Bortolotti, Powell and Pereira, only 45th. But don't anticipate that this is going to be the way that the race order is. An awful lot can happen and change over the course of 6 hours. So the track takes a big deep breath and we can have a look back at the highlights of our first qualifying session of the season here at Paul Ricard. An awful lot went on, starting with that opening 20-minute period as the cars made their way out on track, initially headed by the bronzes and silvers. Johnny Adam was one of the first quick drivers to really go for a time. So also was Finn Diemelhaus in the HRT Mustang. And then another very quick car indeed was the 58 McLaren that was being hustled along early doors by Tom Fleming. Joseph Loeb in the sister car, though, just pipping him towards the end. Good start for Garage 59. Q2, though, would not last very long because that was when we had this drama for Gabriele Piano, what's thought to be a loose wheel stopping the car. When the session did get back underway, Kirby Powell's was very rapid, and Sebastian Bode likewise in 21. 91 Porsche of Hugh van Eindhoven brought itself into the mix, and in 555 Roma Andriolo was looking very good as well, having moved to the CSA Racing squad for this fresh season. 80 Porsche, another car to factor into the mix when we go racing. Had Thomas Preining behind the wheel, and he would give way to Ricardo Feller for Q3. As number 111, McLaren, another of the CSA racing cars, now with Arthur Rougier at the wheel, starting to fight for a good top 10 grid position. Lukas Stoltz, though, was the man to beat in Q2. He would hand over to Mauro Engel, and that car looked to be able to keep hold of provisional pole position as everybody scampered out of the pit lane for the final part of qualifying, including Philip Ellis in 67 Mercedes, who had a big strike of curb. There was Robert Renard in another 91 Porsche going strongly as well. And as 21 of Kirby Powell's made its way up towards the line, that was heading for silver pole. The best time in Q3 was done by Fabian Schiller's Mercedes, but pole position went the way of 48 Mercedes and Mauro Engel, Lukas Stoltz and Lucas Auer. We'll be back for the racing at 5:30 local time. Bye for now.